Hey, what's going on, people? I'm back again for another video game review. This time on Twisted Metal. Now, I've already spent... this game has already been out for about a month now, maybe a little bit more. And so I want to put as much time as I can so I can try to give out the most in-depth review out there. Now, keep in mind, I am pretty much the biggest Twisted Metal fan out there, but I'm going to keep this as unbiased as I can. I will mention all the flaws this game has, and this game does have its flaws, so I'll be sure to include that in this video. I'll probably have to cut this up in a couple of parts because I want to talk about as much as I can about this game. First thing is its history, pretty much. This is PlayStation's longest running franchise ever. It started out since the launch of the very first PlayStation, pretty much, in 1995 or something like that. I didn't start to play this game until Twisted Metal 2 was out, but I never had a PlayStation until that time, pretty much. So Twisted Metal 2 was my very first game I ever played for the very first PlayStation, and ever since then, I've loved this game. Like, I don't know, it's just my most favorite game ever. I will, if there was only one game I could ever play till the end, it would be Twisted Metal, pretty much. But this game, what it is it's car combat, pretty much. It's basically, the story is about a man, Calypso, who once a year runs this super crazy, demented contest called Twisted Metal, where all these psychopathic contestants would get into a armored vehicle and just blow each other up until there's only one left. And you do this in a whole bunch of stages. It's basically like a fighting game. In the older games, you'd have about 8 different stages, a bunch of different enemies you'd have to fight in each stage until you're the only one left. And you'd have like a boss, one or two boss fights depending on the game. And at the very end, what happens is the contestant who wins the contest gets his any wish granted. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be fame, fortune, power, or it really does not matter. Calypso will grant it. However, Calypso isn't quite the nice guy, obviously, considering he even made a contest like this. What I mean is, he will grant the winner's wish, but he will grant it exactly how they asked for it. For example, in Twisted Metal 2, the character Warthog, which was driven by a very old war vet, which was basically in his triple digits, pretty much. He wished to have a young man's body. What Calypso did, however, was he gave him that young body, but he left his head to be the same old 100-year-old head, pretty much. So yeah, that's basically what happens. Calypso would twist the contestants' words and screw them over, pretty much. The story for this game is basically the same thing, but it's a little different this time. There are only 3 characters: Sweet Tooth, Mr. Grimm, and Dollface. And it's basically the same thing. They have their own little storyline, their own little backstory. They have 3 different cutscenes, pretty lengthy actually. And once you go through each character, you basically just see their ending, see what their wish is, and that's basically it. It's just like the older games. But with only 3 characters, it does leave a little bit to be desired. Game mechanics, like I said, it's just car combat. Your car's strapped up with all these missiles, special weapons, machine guns, you know, all these ridiculously crazy shit that you'll never see on actual cars, and you're just going around blasting all these other cars away. Now, these cars, however, very unrealistic when it comes to handling. I mean, it's basically very fast-paced. I mean, the creators just wanted this game to be over the top and very easy to control. So the cars are fast, they can make super tight turns, they can jump, and it's I honestly don't even know why they even use cars in the first place. I mean, they just handle ridiculously unrealistic. It's like you can they get thrown around and blasted like a bunch of Dragon Ball Z characters, the way they get thrown around. Alright, so yeah, here we go. Here's the main menu pretty much. Here's one thing I want to talk about: the presentation of Twisted Metal. This is something that I thought was lacking. Now, here's the main menu. It's pretty simple. You have one player, quick online action, multiplayer, and options. Pretty simple, right? When you go to one player, you have story, challenge, and training. Story, that's you basically just go through the 3 characters like I mentioned. Challenge, what this is you can pretty much just pick any stage and any amount of enemies you want, and you can just fight them all, and once you're done, you're done. You can restart or try a different stage, and then training is pretty self-explanatory. It shows you how to use your vehicles, how to do special effects, special weapons, and whatnot. Now you go to story, you have a bunch of different save files. I already have 3: normal, hard, and twisted. There are 3 difficulties: only normal, hard, and twisted. There is no easy mode, and normal can get pretty damn challenging. So here are the stages. First, you start with Sweet Tooth, and each character, they have an intro movie, a mid movie, and an end movie for each character. And each character has 6 different stages that they can battle it out on. Now, this is different compared to the older games, where the older games would just throw you into a map and have you fight a bunch of different enemies. This one, it starts off as a death match. You just kill everybody that's in the level. But then there are also little twists to some of the stages, such as this cage match, where there is this electric fence pretty much that keeps changing throughout the map, and you have to make sure you're kept within that fence, or otherwise there's going to be a grace period that will be counting down, and you will start losing health once that grace period is up. You also have other ones that feature juggernauts, which you must take down, otherwise they will keep spawning enemies on you. You also have races, quite a twist to the Twisted Metal series, first time Twisted Metal has ever featured them. Now this one is, if you watched Zero Punctuation's review on Twisted Metal, and I highly recommend you do, Zero Punctuation of Escapist Magazine has incredibly hilarious and entertaining reviews. I loved his review for Twisted Metal, and he mentioned that these stages can be pretty unbalanced. I mean, it's almost impossible to win these races unless you have the fastest car in the vehicle. I mean, it's a good thing these aren't featured in the online modes, which I'll get to later. Then you have boss battles. Whoops, I'm just gonna ignore that for now. You have boss battles. Each character has their own boss battles, and they're all very different every single time. Now that's pretty much it for each character. They have 6 different stages, an intro, a mid movie, and an end movie. And each stage is always very different. I mean, every single stage is almost incredibly different compared to the last character, and some of them can be pretty damn challenging, even if they're not at the very end of the game. I mean, let me see, endurance battle. Some of them do last longer than others. For the most part, for me, they only take about a little over 5 minutes to complete. Some of them a little over 10 minutes. And then when you get to the last character, which has some of the hardest stages, like I said, some of them are just ridiculously hard compared to the other characters. But overall, though, once you get to grips with the controls, that's one thing I almost forgot to mention. The controls of this game can be a little awkward at times. As a veteran for myself, they did take a little while to get used to, but once you get used to them, then the gameplay will be pretty flawless. However, there is one questionable design that I have for the controls. In order to go reverse, you can either double tap circle or hold down the right stick. That is a bit of a questionable design right there, and it's something I think the right stick should have been used to look behind you instead, because it's at the moment it's impossible to look behind you during gameplay. So I heard that David Jaffe is looking into the controls, seeing if there's any tweaks he can make. But yeah, that's a bit of a questionable design right there, having two different ways to go reverse. R1 and L1, these you switch your weapons with this. You have your machine gun and your special weapon firing right here. Acceleration is square. Tight turning, like drifting around, well, not drifting, but just to do some really tight turns, you press X. Circle is brake. Triangle is to switch your alternate weapons. You move around with these, and then you have the D-pad, which has a shield, a freeze missile, and a drop mine command. This one will shoot missiles. This is a reverse, a way to shoot backwards, pretty much, depending on the weapon. And like I said, when it comes to presentation, I mean, to summarize it, the menus, it works and everything. The menu music, it gets kind of repetitive. I think it could have used better menu music compared to the other games. And menus, they work, but like I said, there's some really questionable design decisions with this game. I mean, the whole event manager, this is to like manage your parties, your clans, but there are just way too many menus and sub menus that you got to go through, and it just seems very, very cluttered and everything. So I don't know, I think it just requires too many button presses just to do one thing. And in order to actually get there, you have to press select, but sometimes it doesn't even tell you that in some of the menus. Like if you get invited for a game, it's very hard to tell if you have an invite in your inbox or anything. And in the single player campaign, there are descriptions for each level, but you have to press square to read those descriptions. I don't know why that is. I mean, why do you have to press square? The description should be there already. But yeah, like I said, just some questionable stuff here and there. And overall, really, I think the menu is pretty ugly. When you go online, you have online, LAN, offline. I mean, it's overall, I think the menus are just pretty ugly. There's a lot of things that just seem a little too simple and a little too complex at the same time. I have my unlocks, and you have different categories, but like I said, there just seems like way too many button presses just to do one thing. But they still work, and I just think it could have looked better. It could have been a little more functional. That's all. That's basically it for now, though. There are many other things I need to talk about. So, like I said, I'm going to make different parts, a bunch of parts of this review. And next, I will be going to game modes, characters and vehicles, and maybe maps, depending on how much time I have for each video. So that's part 1, and I'll catch you guys later. Thank you. See you later.